Destiny 2 was revealed to the world last night in an orgy of details, information, and overhyped games journalists. I really enjoyed Destiny 1, but a lot of you didn't. Can Destiny 2 do enough to win over you skeptics? And more importantly, can it stop me crying into my Cocoa Pops whenever I think about how many hundreds of hours I sunk into the original?
So let's start with the basics. Destiny 2 is out on PC, PS4, Xbox One on September the 8th. And you heard it right, yeah, it's coming to PC. It's being pitched as a new beginning for everyone, so the character you built up in the original will not be passed over to the sequel. The PC version is a Battle.net exclusive, so no Steam support, but that makes perfect sense when you think about it. It's running at 30 FPS on consoles and the frame rate is uncapped on PC because you're damn right it is. The game's director Luke Smith said the game is built on 3 pillars: a world that pulls you in, amazing things to do, and always someone to play with. Well, that's very nice.
Alright, so that's a good start. Well, what are the actual big changes in Destiny? Well, Christ, there is kind of a lot of them. Let's take a look at the story first. In the reveal livestream, Bungie showed off the game's first mission, Homecoming, which looks thicker in story and drama than the entirety of Destiny 1. The game starts with the Earth's last city under attack by the Cabal, or more specifically Red Legion, which is all starting to get a bit Warhammer 40,000 if you ask me. And the tower, that hub world from the original Destiny, that's totally destroyed. The Red Legion are led by the incredibly gruffly voiced Primus Ghoul, who imprisons the Traveller, you know, that giant floating white orb, during the assault. As a direct result, all of the Guardians lose their light and their equipment, which to anyone who hasn't played the game is bad news, honestly. It's the player's job to reunite the now scattered and defeated Guardians across a bunch of new worlds, including Earth's lush European Dead Zone, Nessus, Io, and Titan. Characters from the original make a return throughout the story, including the old Vanguard leaders Zavala, Ikora, and Nathan Fillion's Cade. The European Dead Zone is the first big in-game area with a new social space and a game area that's actually twice as big as any location in the original Destiny.
Okay, let's start with a few Gaz facts about the original Destiny. Activision say that Destiny is the most pre-ordered new IP ever. Activision also said that they committed $500 million to the budget of the original Destiny, although Eric Osborne from Bungie did say that the budget turned out to be nowhere near that. Even if that was the case and they spent $500 million, they made that all back in day one sales and pre-orders.
So, short version, it was a very successful game. It was an expensive game to make by all accounts, but it was very successful.
Commercially successful.
So one of the first things from that first bit of information we've got there is the European Dead Zone, which was actually cut from Destiny 1, and that's pretty interesting to me. A lot of the the community were saying, oh, that sounds really cool, why wasn't it in the game? So I'm glad that they're putting it in the game, and it also speaks to that idea that they do seem to be listening to the community, and that's one of my biggest takeaways from the whole reveal. Is a lot of the stuff was like very specific facts and details, which we'll get into in a second, about little things that the community's been crying out for, and they're saying, oh yeah, we've done that for you this time, inventory slots and things like that, which is cool. I'm glad that they're listening to their fans, but they're also clearly trying to broaden the appeal of the game by doing things like shifting it more to like a traditional FPS, it was kind of an MMO hybrid type thing. That was the big pitch first time around, and that maybe didn't pay off as well, so they're shifting it back to that FPS territory by doing things like having NPCs being involved in the combat with you and stuff, which there was none of that in the original Destiny. So that's a lot closer to Call of Duty than it is to an MMO. So first impressions, I'm pretty excited as a fan of Destiny 1. I'm pretty convinced by the display. There's a lot of details here, and there's a lot of appealing to the community that they've already got from the original Destiny, and I think that's pretty cool. So positive signs so far.
The thing to note for me is, as a PC main, as I am, I didn't play the original Destiny because it's a first-person shooter on console. I mean, who the plays first-person shooters on console, Mike?
I don't know. I don't know.
How many hours did you put in, Mike?
Not me.
Hundreds. I don't know what it is like. I mean, we had a discussion in the office before, and you talked about the auto aiming system, and I just felt dirty.
You got very upset.
I felt dirty at the thought of like having an auto aim system, a first-person shooter.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm disgusted.
I'm not saying you're wrong. First-person games are much better on PC, but this was the only way I could play this was on console.
Oh, okay, understood. So Destiny 2 is coming to PC, so it sparked my interest.
Yep.
It's MMORPGs. I've played a lot of those in the past. So hybrid between first-person shooter, MMORPG. RPG. You know, I'm interested. It gets me interested.
PC Gamer, there's a lot of reports coming out of it, a lot of like first impressions and stuff, because the press that were there got hands-on with it. So PC Gamer, they had 3 reporters there. All of them are pretty excited about it, and they're calling it like the definitive version already, which I'm sure it will be. 60 frames a second, you know, uncapped frame rate on PC, so that's obviously going to be better than 30 frames a second. And I've talked about this before on the channel, but the actual satisfaction of headshots in the game is unrivaled. No other game has nailed headshots like Destiny. So doing that with a mouse and keyboard is going to be a lot better, I imagine.
Although they did say that the PC version is coming a few months after the console versions, because, you know, in-game developers. Okay, so let's take a look at some more of the details. The game worlds now have actual functional maps to aid navigations, as well as improved side quests. Distractions like ambient enemy encounters, public events, treasure hunts and patrols will also return, as well as new dungeons known as Lost Sectors. Game mode wise, there will be new strikes, new PvP modes and new beefed up side mission type called Adventures. The Crucible has also seen some big changes, the biggest being that all modes have been reduced to 4v4. There's also a new PvP mode called Countdown, in which players can place a bomb in their opponent's base. There's also going to be 3 weapon slots that are more flexible this time round, so you can shuffle your weapons and weapon types around more freely.
So that sounds like ultra lame. Why would that be noteworthy? But for someone who's played a lot of the original, anyone who's played a lot of the original will appreciate that, because it was quite rigid in the first one. You had like specific weapon types that had to go in certain slots, and you had like three weapons that you could carry. So the fact that it's a lot more free and open now, like you can have 3 assault rifles if you want, or you know, it's a lot more fluid and up to you. So that's more options. That honestly is exciting. Okay,
take your word for it, Mike.
And there's more new classes this time around. Include the Warlock Dawnblade, the Titan Sentinel, and Hunter Arcstrider, which all have new unique abilities and super attacks. For those interested in playing raids but have no friends and were crying out for matchmaking, which I probably would have liked to see myself, to be honest, Bungie have tried to meet you halfway.
That's kind of a self-burn though, Mike.
It is a self-burn.
You wrote that line yourself.
That is
you said, for anyone who needs friends like me.
I did talk about crying to my Cocoa Pops earlier, so I'm not, you know, not averse to a self-burn. They've added clans now with in-game rosters and customization, as well, and this is the key bit, as a new system called guided games. So solo players can find a community or a group to play with that way instead, without having to rely on external websites or apps. It's basically an official looking for group system, something that will be very familiar to anyone who is looking for raid or even Nightfall strike partners in the original Destiny. Likewise, it means if you're raiding in a group and need to invite a random into the game to fill that one last slot, you can do that as well.
Having never played the original Destiny, I know quite a bit about it, and having seen some of the details from Destiny 2, I know quite a bit about that too. It doesn't look too dissimilar. Like, is this an actual, more like an expansion, more like because it doesn't seem like a sequel.
Yeah, that's the big question. Is it Destiny 2 or is it Destiny 1.5? I would argue that there's probably just about enough here to make me feel like it does deserve to be a sequel. But if someone showed me all this footage and said this is the latest Destiny expansion and I knew nothing else about it, I probably would just nod along and go, yeah, cool. I mean, there's nothing drastic enough here to make it look that different. The gameplay looks incredibly familiar. I mean, it's the same series of games and everything like that, and I'm sure the graphical fidelity will be better, will be sharper, and because the last Destiny was on previous gen as well, so they had to account for that in the development, which is shite. This looks like, you know, just about enough to be Destiny 2, and that's kind of one of my biggest complaints with the way that Bungie and Activision have handled Destiny. That, like, some of the expansions were so bare bones. Like, they had this great game, they had this great platform, this great shooting mechanic and stuff, and this cool design. You know, in terms of design, the world and everything was incredible. But, you know, there's no story in there, and there's a very weak campaign, and then there's very limited options for end game stuff, activities and stuff like that. And they've just built on it slowly over time with very expensive expansions and stuff. So this just reminds me, it just brings all that back to me a little bit.
Let's talk about recent sequels in the game industry. We had Titanfall 2, we had Dishonored 2, we had Watch Dogs 2. They were all pretty much of a flop compared to the originals. Everyone who pre-ordered Destiny, and a lot of people were let down. You can kind of foresee, personally, I can foresee people being a bit more skeptical towards Destiny 2 now, and maybe, I don't know, is it with the industry trend going as it is, are they planning for a fall? You know what I mean? They're heading for a fall.
Going for a flop. They've got a high bar to hit with this, and they probably, you know, there's a good chance they won't hit it, like you pointed out. they need a lot of people to buy this if they're gonna be as successful as the original. So, you know, it's a good question. I think they'll definitely get a lot of returning players. I think if you broke through a few mental barriers playing the game, you probably really enjoyed it. And I feel like I was part of that, and it has got like core audience. They definitely will be millions of people who buy this, but will there be as many millions? That's the question, isn't it?
The thing I would say is, guys, just hold off on buying it. You know there's going to be expensive expansions down the line. You know there's going to be not as much content as there should be day one, because they add it all in later. That's the nature of the way they do things these days. So don't jump into pre-ordering it, and don't give them the money before they've, you know, because you want to incentivize them to bring out shit when the game's ready, when the game's launched. Don't give them your money now so they think, oh, we'll save this bit for later because we've got enough money from the pre-orders. So that's just my little tip, my little bit of advice to you guys as like conscientious consumers. Like, do not give them the money before they've decided what's going to be in the final version. That's all I'm saying.
So there is a beta coming this summer, so definitely jump into that if you're even semi-interested in this game. Like I said, don't pre-order it yet. You know, you haven't even played. You know, you could play it first. You could play the beta and experience it first before you even have to put any money down.
To translate to you Americans, that's beta.
Yeah.
For you people who...
It's hard, I know.
Who think that it's wrong when we say it in our accent, you know what I mean?
It's like, beta? What the fuck is that? What's he on about?
It's pronounced beta. Yeah, maybe it is where you live, but not where we live. It's beta. Deal with
Literally, it is in the dictionary. It just... Alright, Destiny 2, what did you make of the reveal? Was there anything in there that got you excited? Let us know down in the comments. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. There will be another video right here if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel like a badass. See you next time.